Hello and welcome, Marv's here. Today we're playing Diablo 4, and we're going to be showing you our build, Walk-in Arsenal. Stick around, and we're going to dive right into the skills. Starting off, we are going to take any 2 points in the basic skills, just so we can unlock the core skills. Previously, we used to use lunging strike in combination with enhanced lunging strike and combat lunge strike. But since we picked up the double swing in addition to our upheaval, we are no longer using a basic skill. We're going to be explaining fury generation and various other mechanics a bit later, but let's just keep on going with the skill tree. So we have upheaval, gonna drop a couple points in there. We have enhanced upheaval, which is great because it stuns some enemies, and it works great in combination with enhanced double swing, as we do get some flurry for attacking stunned or knocked down enemies. Further on, we're taking violent upheaval because that's one way of actually starting our berserking. And furious upheaval isn't really that great for us because we're constantly going to be attacking and using this core skill in combination with double swing. We are also taking violent double swing. This recently got a buff from 1 up to 2 seconds. We're previously using furious double swing, as 1 second of vulnerability wasn't really enough, and we had to use pressure points. Though pressure points isn't that great, and we've finally opted out of that. So swapping furious double swing into violent double swing has really made this build pop. Then we're gonna be picking up rallying cry and enhanced rallying cry and tactical rallying cry. We really need a source of fury generation, and this is one way to do it. We're also picking up challenging shout. Pay attention that the item contribution is quite high, so we're just going to drop in 1 point here, 1 point in the enhanced challenging shout, and tactical challenging shout. This is mainly survivability, and it really helps out into some of those higher torment dungeons. Booming voice is great. We want uptime of our shouts, and this is a way to do it. Raid leader, we're only picking 2 points as opposed to 3 because there are some more interesting choices to go that we want to spend our points on. We're picking up leap. We previously used to use Iron Maelstrom, but the higher the difficulty got, we realized we needed something else, and this is what we went for. So we went with leap, enhanced leap, which is great because movability, and power leap. Mighty leap is great, especially now that hamstring has been nerfed. Previously hamstring applied slow to all bleeding enemies, but now it only applies to healthy enemies. We're still experimenting with this. It's still okay to have 1 point in here just for no mercy, and we could technically go with this because our leap is on quite a short cooldown, and we're gonna show you a bit later how we're managing our build and what is the secret behind this actually working and slapping. But for now, we're going with power leap. We do need that fury, and this is one of the ways to obtain it. We're picking up 1 point in aggressive resistance. We are just spending other points somewhere else because it's a bit more needed. This we're experimenting still with our fury generation. We are currently having a pretty good output on maintaining fury, but currently we have 2 points in here, and as we constantly have our rage up, the berserking, then this is a nice little source if you feel like you need a bit of fury. We have no mercy, critical strikes against immobilized, stunned, or slowed enemies is great. Dealing increased damage to close enemies with Pit Fighter, also taking less damage from distant enemies is great too. And then our main bread and butter, Death Blow. This is an insane skill. It recently also had a buff in Season 1, as now we deal 150 as opposed to 100 increased damage to bosses. This is huge, and in combination with some other things that we're going to be showing, this is melting enemies 10 levels above us, and nightmare dungeons are made easy. We are going with Warrior's Death Blow. This is the main way of how we activate Berserk. Since we don't have many ways to keep Berserk up, this really helps. And since we don't have Furious Double Swing, we're going to be showing how we maintain this a bit later. But further on, we do have 1 point in Hamstring. We're still experimenting, and we're going to be seeing how it works out in Season 1. Thick Skin, only dropping 1 point in here because we want to get to these two. This got nerfed a couple patches back, but it's still good. 6% damage reduction as opposed to 9. It's still worth, and it's good. We do need as much survivability as we can. The further on in endgame we get. Counteroffensive is great. We deal 12% increased damage when 50% of our Fortify is over max life. So that's pretty good. We have heavy-handed. While using two-handed weapons, we deal 15% increased damage. Pretty self-explanatory. And we use all of our weapons because we are a walking arsenal build. This is probably one of the more important ones. Dealing direct damage with two-handed bludgeoning, two-handed slashing, or dual-wield weapons grants 10% increased damage for 6 seconds. While all 3 damage and bonuses are active, you gain an additional 15% damage. So in total, it's 45%. This, in combination with this, boosts our damage significantly. And even for the core skills, since we're not using the basic skills, we are dealing a ton of damage because we're going to be alternating between these 3 skills and also looping in Leap. Further on, last but not least, these are pretty important. We only pick 1 point here because we want to spend 3 points each in here. Furious Impulse. Each time you swap weapons, gain 6 Fury. This is pretty much needed as we are constantly swapping weapons. We do not have a generator as a basic attack, so this is going to help us hugely to maintain that Fury, and it is a must. Invigorating Fury, we are dumping Fury constantly because alternating between our 2 core skills. We love a bit of healing, and this procs very, very often. That's it for the skills, and let's go take a look at the Paragon. Now that we've covered the skill tree, we're just going to have a little browse and look at the Paragon board. We're going to fill in our default one and choose the right side just to get to here as fast as possible. We're going to slap in a glyph here, and Ire is pretty great as we do have some strength in here, so later on you can pick up some rare nodes and advance here, but I did it later on in the game. I did pick up raw power before though, so it's okay if you get that. If you want to activate this, it's fine. Berserk is nice, and if we level this glyph up, we get a 40.7% damage while berserking, so that's pretty nice. Afterwards, the next board that we want to attach, and this is going to be our first one, is Carnage. It's pretty important on taking a good board which can spread out to all sides, because we do want to connect a couple of boards for this build to work, and here we have a pretty good tree on how to get to all sides. So Carnage is going to be the one, though I do have to add that this legendary node I actually picked up after level 90 because there are more important things to get beforehand, so you can just ignore this and advance all the way to unlocking the glyph to then proceed further on with attaching the next board. The next board we are gonna want to connect is this decimator. It's pretty important that we get this early because we do get vulnerability damage and we do have some damage while fortified, which is pretty sweet. So we're gonna go in here. It's pretty important to note the order in which we attach the boards because the requirements for certain stats are just gonna go up. We want all of these to be functional, so this is the next board we're gonna be attaching, and that's that. Afterwards, we do want to attach the Weapon Master boards. We can only go up here, attach it, and leave it be for the time being, because now that we have some form of fortify with the Undaunted glyph, we're gonna be having a little bit of a deep dive into the glyphs as well a bit later after we cover the Paragon board. Now that we have that, we do need a source of fortify. There are various ways on how we can do it. Swap weapons 10 times, gain a chunk of fortify. You can use that to begin with, but afterwards we do want to plug in a Warbringer. So that's what we're gonna do next after we've connected Weapon Master. We're not gonna be advancing through this. We just need to attach it first beforehand because all of these rare nodes are pretty sweet and we do want the bonuses, so we're just gonna go with that. And here we're using only 2 rare nodes and the bonuses aren't the greatest. They're great. We used to use Max Fury in combination with some aspects, but yes, we can ignore these for now because we've optimized our build not to really take into account the Max Fury that much as we previously used to. So now that we have Weapon Master attached, we are attaching Warbringer. We're gonna head on straight here and pick up the legendary node. We do have a source of fortify, so we can drop the aspect and look into plugging in something else. We can ignore this for the time being as we do want to unlock further on the Weapon Master. And this is pretty important. We do not want to opt in to using 2 core skills without a basic Fury generator before we actually get to here. So we're going to make our way up here, pick up all these juicy rare nodes, plug in another glyph, which is Blood Feeder. It's amazing. Damage to bleeding enemies. Our weapon expertise, we are using two-handed sword, so all of the attacks that we do will apply bleed, and we have 5% increased critical chance against bleeding enemies, which is nice. Our build in combination with some other things, which we're gonna go over in a bit, has a very high critical strike chance, so this is just a little bonus. And we're gonna go up here, pick up all of these nodes. This is nice, some defensives, physical attack speeds. These were nerfed at some point, but they're still great, so we're picking them all up. We're gonna go up here. This I picked up a little bit later because I was just rushing to complete the build. But yes, we're just gonna fill in the rest a bit later. You can pick this up right away if you want to. It's nice, 100 armor, resistance to all elements. Even though resistances aren't that great, that still gives you like 1% or 2, so it's fine. So we're going into here, Weapon Master. Fury maintenance is important, so this is one of the ways. When we actually plug this in, we can finally go ahead and drop our generator, which we previously, as mentioned, used Lunging Strike. Get rid of one of these, and plug in our double swing, enhanced double swing, and violent double swing. Afterwards, when we've completed this, we can attach Bonebreaker this is the last board that we're going to be picking up. We want this for the Glyph socket. There is a rare node which you can pick up. It's 10 strength. We're not going to be hitting the requirement of additional bonuses, and we don't really need the other rare node. What we need here is dexterity. There are a few clusters of dexterity nodes, and if we put in Mortal Draw, which is, I believe, one of the strongest glyphs in the game for our build, we're going to get a huge whopping amount of 155% damage when swapping to new weapons. And in addition, swapping weapons, we have 18% critical chance on top of that. So our crit grows exponentially, and we're going to be critting all the time. So we pick up that, and after we're done, we can fill in the gaps, grab a couple of extra things, max life. We can go down here, pick up the rare node, some physical damage. We can plug in Wrath, which is pretty huge. This is also going to help us with the Fury generation and maintenance. 41% increased critical damage if we pick up the dexterity nodes, and 3 Fury whenever we critically strike is huge. Afterwards, we can go down here, plug in Carnage. A little bit of attack speed when we critically strike is always nice. And then we can finish it off with putting a point in here, because we just want to unlock everything. And yeah, this is how the board looks. Glyphs, I believe I forgot to mention those. Well, we did kind of go over them a little bit, but we plug in Ire here, get all of those strength clusters. We plug in Exploit, get the dexterity ones. We plug in Wrath here, get the dexterity. We plug in Blood Feeder, also dexterity. We get Undaunted, Willpower, and here, which is the huge one, is Mortal Draw. We just get a huge amount of dexterity clusters, and this is going to be huge. Now that we went over skills, the Paragon Board, and the Glyphs, we can take a look at our skills and armor. Rallying Cry, Challenging Shout, 2 charges of Death Blow, Leap, Double Swing, and Upheaval. We are using Weapon Arsenal, so we got to make sure we're using our Mace on Death Blow, Mace on Leap. We do have 2 charges, so that helps a lot. The cooldown is 12 seconds, but if we do kill an enemy with it, then it gets reset, and we have 2 charges. Even if we had 1 charge, we get 2 charges back, so that's great. Leap is going to be on a shorter cooldown because of an aspect that we're using, so it's not as huge as 13 seconds or 14, so it's still great. We're plugging in our Mace, then we're going to be using Double Swing with our dual wielded weapons, and we're going to use the secondary 2-hander, which we're opting in for a sword for Upheaval. As for the gear, let's go over some aspects. The looting aspect is pretty great. I found that we get CC'd quite a lot, and later on in the game we get boinked pretty hard. So if you can't do anything while you're low on health, you pretty much die if you're CC'd. So this is great. 20 seconds cooldown. We get Unstoppable for 4 seconds. It's a free get out of jail card. Weapon Masters on our chest. We do get another charge of our Weapon Master skills, which is huge for a double swing. We really want that. We've plugged it into our chest. The lucky hit of 55% to stun the target is a nice little bonus. Primal Gauntlets. Each time a core skill deals direct damage to an enemy, our Leap deals 20% extra damage. We do spam our core skills quite often, so it's a nice little bonus. You can plug something in here that's different. We're still experimenting. This is nice. It's not the best, but it's pretty great, so we're just holding on to that for now. It's pretty important to basically have this aspect. We need our armor high. I believe this was nerfed, so now we only get 30% as opposed to, if I'm correct, it was 50 beforehand. I might be wrong, but this is still important. We are also going with ghost walkers on our boots. While unstoppable, and for 4 seconds after, we gain 25% movement speed, and we can really move through enemies. This is great, especially in the late game. We do want to clear fast, we do want to avoid the enemies, and the faster we are, we can basically avoid everything that's thrown at us. And we do get unstoppable, both from our rallying cry and our aspect right here, so this is amazing. As for the weapon, I got lucky enough to get overkill. It's pretty great as our death blow now creates a shockwave, dealing a certain percentage of damage to enemies behind the target. Enemies who die will also affect and reset death blow's cooldown. This is great. We don't necessarily have to have this on bosses. We can just plug in a two-hander mace with vulnerability and critical strike damage, strength, and then something like damage to bleeding targets or close targets, and it's gonna be even better. But when we're clearing dungeons, this is nice. For our two dual-wielded weapons, we are currently going with swords just purely because of the critical strike damage. Vulnerability damage, and any other type of damage are multiplicative and not additive, so they multiply each other up. So this is great. What we want on weapons mostly is vulnerability, critical strike damage, strength, and then something like damage to close targets or to bleeding targets, or core skill damage, which is great. So on this weapon, previously we had the Edgemaster's aspect on our necklace, but now just because we're experimenting and we've plugged in our dual swing with violent dual swing, we no longer get berserking reset when attacking enemies. So we do need a source of maintaining, and I found that this aspect is amazing. It keeps our berserking up constantly, and since we're using core skills all the time, our berserk is up all the time as well, and our enemies are always vulnerable, so it's pretty huge. So we've swapped out the Edgemaster's aspect and put it on one of the dual wield weapons, as it's still nice to deal a little bit of extra damage the higher fury we have. And yeah, that's that. Critical strikes with core skills increase our attack speed. Our attacks are a little bit clunky, but now that we do have this, it's making the game a little bit more easier, and it's pretty sweet. We do have the loop. We restore an amount of resource when we crowd control enemies. We can swap this out for something like Blood Chieftain's loop, and this is pretty nice to keep our shouts up a little bit more often on spammable. And this is huge. Giant strides, reducing cooldown of leap 5 seconds for each enemy hit, up to 9 seconds. This basically reduces our cooldown on our leap to 4, and we can constantly spam that when we're using these in combination with this. It adds a bit of damage, plus we have a lot of movability, and it's nice. As for our sword, after spending 100 fury, which we do constantly with these two skills, we deal 200% increased damage with our weapon mastery skills, which basically buffs this into oblivion, and we can pretty much one-shot all of the elites and bosses. So yeah, that's that's the gear. We can opt in for a couple of other things here, like yeah, Echoing Fury. This we already have. We're still trying to find a way to plug this in, but currently we just don't have slots for it. We'll see if this is needed later on, but for the time being, it's great. We've swapped out this from one of our dual wields because we needed the Edge Masters that we've previously swapped out from the amulet. So this we are no longer using, but yeah, that's pretty much the build. And as we previously mentioned, for the expertise, we want to use the two-handed sword to basically make our enemies bleed. So that's that. I hope you guys have fun with the build, and if you like it, or if you do have any comments, feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you think. If you like the video, if you like the build, feel free to leave a like, and yeah, have fun with it.
Not ready yet. This way. I must wait. I must wait. Not ready yet. Not ready yet. Not ready yet. Not ready yet. I must wait. Not ready yet.